Good morning, everyone. So, 5 critical steps to protect your business from a cyber attack. Obviously, it's a big issue at the moment in the industry. Every time we look at the media, someone else has been attacked. So this webinar is around what we can actually do. So looking at the problem and then looking at actually what we can do to prevent it. Feel free to use the chat, ask me any questions. It's a fairly open session. So fire away with those questions. If I can answer it in the session, I will, but I can also come back to you after the session if it's a bit more of an in-depth thing. QR code in the middle of the screen is my link tree, so that takes you to any social profiles, websites, all that stuff. So if you want to find out a little bit more about me, and my story and also Initial IT, then that's the place to go. This session will also be recorded, so I can send out to anyone that's missed the start of this session as well. So, I think I just missed a slide. It's a good start. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you walk into your office tomorrow morning. You sit down at your desk and everything's switched off and nothing works. Your staff are sat around unable to work and the business has ground to a halt. As you sit there with your head in your hands, worrying about what's happened, the realization dawns on you that you're the latest victim of a cyber attack. The business can't send invoices, they can't transact with clients. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to call? What impact is that going to have on your business, on your life? How will you pay your staff and your suppliers? Unfortunately, this is a very real reality for thousands of business owners across the UK every day. They walk into their office and realise that unfortunately it's them today. But very often with cybersecurity, we think that it's only the big companies that get affected. And obviously on the screen now we can see some of those clients. The famous one this year, M&S. Latest stats: £300 million in lost revenue due to the cyber attack. And we switch on the media, we look at Facebook, and we see these attacks happening. And the problem with it is that it kind of lulls us into this false sense of security that actually cybersecurity is a big company problem, when it couldn't be further from the truth. A lot of these big organizations actually got hacked in very, very simple ways. Things like weak passwords, things like, unpatched systems. We're not, the cybersecurity industry isn't, lots of teenagers in hoodies in dark rooms hacking away. It's people logging into weak security. And I think we need to remember that and understand that, there are things that we can do as small business owners to protect ourselves. So I don't know if anyone recognises this company. These are a big organisation. There were 700 staff across the UK. They were 158 years old. So really, real part of the infrastructure in the UK. And they got a cyber attack, and the cyber attack wiped these guys out within about a month. They went out of business. And the reason I ask this question is because most people don't know KMP ever existed. They're also called the Knights of Old, if you've heard of them. The story came out in the media about these guys earlier this year, just after Marks and Spencer's got attacked. But they actually got breached and went out of business in 2023, 2 years previous. But nobody cared. Nobody was interested in the media, was interested in the story until cybersecurity became fashionable in the eyes of the media, and then the story was announced. But it just goes to show, if a company of that sort of prestige, 100 nearly 160 years old, isn't appearing in the media, then there's thousands of other companies every day that also aren't appearing in the media. And again, these guys unfortunately got hit with a devastating attack. But again, it was because one of their employees had a weak password. Somebody found it, logged in, and destroyed their business. So what is the actual issue? Well, globally, there's been 110 million cyber attacks in the first 3 months of 2025. Yeah, it's a massive number. And the UK is the third most attacked country in the world, that sits just behind the US and Canada. 48% of small businesses have experienced some sort of cyber attack, and 60% of businesses that are attacked never recover. And those stats are crazy when you think about the devastation that cyber attacks and hacks are having on business. So what's actually the other? So we've got the financial reputation. We've got business damage. Businesses going out of being bankrupt because of this issue. But the other issue that aren't talked about is some of these stats here. So 47% of companies found it harder to attract new clients after attack. And all these are to do with their reputation. 43% lost customers because of an attack. 38% experienced negative publicity. And 21% actually lost business partners. So, it's not just the attack and the recovery of that. These things have long-term consequences for businesses. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. We're starting to see a shift in cyber. With all the work that a lot of good companies in the UK and around the world are doing, 67% of medium-sized businesses identified a breach this year. That's compared to 70% last year. So we're seeing a small drop. And the same goes for small businesses, 42% this year against 49% last year. So people are starting to take notice, seeing there's a problem and doing something about it, which is really good news. The problem we've got is all the businesses that aren't taking note are still sat in those smaller percentages, and they're still struggling and experiencing attacks. But it does affect everybody. I'll tell you a story about a UK security company we worked with a few years back, where they weren't a client of ours, but they rang us up, and it was a week before Christmas. They had a massive breach of their security, and they operated security cameras around some quite prestigious addresses, footballers and very prestigious business addresses. Those sorts of things. They're quite a high stakes, security company, and they were completely offline due to this attack. The Christmas fortnight was probably their busiest period of the year, and they were dead in the water. It took us, because they hadn't invested in technology so much, it took us about 6 to 7 weeks to get them operational again. We had to rebuild everything from scratch, redesign what was once there to get them back and running. It was and to be honest, they very nearly went completely out of business because of this problem. It was only by luck that we found some old backups that we could restore from. If we couldn't have found them, they'd have been starting from scratch, and I don't think they would have survived. The estimated cost of that problem was around £300,000. So they were a company that was 26 staff. Not a massive organisation, but a 24/7 business that ran round the clock, 24/7, 24 hours a day. So massive impact to them. We also worked with a trauma specialist, a coach, who was just starting her business, and she had a very different set of problems, but she she just started doing some social media advertising and things, and actually got her Facebook account breached. Now, again, very different scenario from the security company, but still, to her, took her business out for 2 or 3 weeks while we tried to get in touch with Facebook and deal with the problem. Very preventable in both instances, but not taking the right approach cause these people massive problems. A HR company that is actually a client of ours experienced a breach a while ago. They, as they do, click on a phishing link, a false link, enter their username and passwords. We could never stop people doing that, and they captured this person's credentials and managed to log on. Fortunately, being a client of ours, we picked this issue up really quickly. We were on it, and we resolved that breach within well under an hour, and the company was safe and protected. But these are a few examples of the sort of things that happen on a daily basis, and why we need to always be looking to take cybersecurity to that next level. If that HR company hadn't had somebody like us in place, well, that attack could have gone on for weeks. Very often hackers will sit in an organization for weeks just looking for information, scanning for the right email to intercept, but we managed to shut them down very, very quickly. So what can we actually do about it? What can we actually put in place to reduce the risk of cyber attacks? Well, Cyber Essentials is a great place to start. What Cyber Essentials is, it's a government framework that it's been around for a number of years, a decade actually. They just had their 10-year anniversary. And it talks about some tactical steps to put into your business to make sure we keep the risk of cyber attacks to a minimum. We now advise clients that Cyber Essentials is a minimum level of security. So it's something that we always wanting to be to get in place and then bring security above that level. And it's I'm not going to go into the technical details of this, but we need a firewall in place. We need to be able to protect the business perimeter, a secure configuration. So making sure that everything that business is doing has security in mind. Devices, laptops, and desktops are locked down and protected. We've got some malware protection in place so that any rogue software that gets onto those machines is immediately detected and dealt with. The joiners and levers processes are tight, because the amount of times that we've walked into a business and an ex-employee's had access to their old sales system for 2 years because no one's followed up and shut the accounts down is crazy. So ensuring that there's a strict process for people joining and people leaving the organization is critical. And finally, always making sure your software is updated, your security patches are pushed. We all know it's really frustrating. We all know that they always happen just at the wrong time when you're trying to do that important document, but they're there for a critical reason. And they clients of Initial IT, we handle that for them, so they get warning and advance notice of when they need to restart their computers and all that sort of thing. But a lot of these things, they're not quick to put in. It takes time, it takes planning, it takes a bit of organisation and bit of budget as well. But what can we actually do right today, quickly? So here are some quick wins. And if we're not doing these, we absolutely should be. So the first thing is multi-factor authentication. So it sounds complicated, but it's essentially that code that gets sent to your phone when you try and log onto your bank. That's what we're talking about here. And that should be mandatory across your business. If you're not running MFA on your business a login account, you're taking a serious risk. Only 40% of businesses have implemented MFA into their business, which is staggering. I found that stat the other day and I couldn't quite believe it. It is the fundamental thing. Not having that in place is like just leaving your front door open and with a big sign outside saying, "Come and steal my stuff." The second thing is a password manager. So password manager is a secure place that you can store passwords and 2FA codes and all those sorts of things in an area that is audited, is locked down and protected. The benefit of doing this, we all have tens, 20s, hundreds of passwords these days. Because humans aren't very good at remembering lots and lots and lots of different numbers, we always use the same email address and the same password, or a very similar password. And to a hacker, that's like music to their ears, because they can guess these things. If you look at some of the most popular, the biggest breaches of all time, Yahoo was breached a while back. 3 billion accounts was leaked onto the dark web. LinkedIn was a really famous one. So everyone that had a LinkedIn account in like 2016, all breached, usernames, passwords, email addresses on the dark web. So you see these big accounts. If you had an account at the time with LinkedIn and you use the same email address and the same password for your business, then that data is sitting out on the dark web, and it's there for someone to buy and then attack your business with. So we use password managers so we don't have to remember things like passwords. We use password managers so we have extremely long, complex passwords for every different account, and we never need to remember them. We have a secure system, so when we want to log on to Facebook or Google or whatever we're doing that day, we just copy and paste the password in, and you don't even need to know it. Really highly recommended. If you don't do anything else, those first two are absolutely critical to an organization. The third one is security awareness training. Now, again, sounds complex, not particularly expensive to put in place. Only 19% of businesses are actually doing anything around cybersecurity awareness training at the moment. But it's a fundamental problem, a fundamental issue in the cybersecurity world, is the fact that the biggest weakness is human error. It's the fact that we're all busy, we're all stressed out, we're all trying to do things at 100 miles an hour. And, clicking on that link, or, pressing that button on an email, we're not trying to break anything, but we're just busy people. So what we need to do is increase people's knowledge and give people the skills they need to spot these things easily on their bad days. We all spot them on our good days. It's the bad days when we're stressed, the kids have been a pain to get to school and all the rest of it, that these things happen. So regular security training, and when I say regular, I'm talking about, a 2-minute video once a month, and maybe a test to see if people actually have took on that knowledge, is a really great way of protecting your business. And what we find is that when we implement security awareness training into a company, we start with people scoring quite badly in terms of the sort of the cyber scores that we test against, and over a period of time, those scores dramatically improve, proving that it's working and proving that the business is starting to become into a much better place. So who is Initial IT? So Initial IT are a security first IT company. We're based in Staffordshire. And I make IT personal, easy to understand for local businesses. I'm local, approachable, I never speak jargon, and I take care of your IT and cybersecurity so you can get on with running your business. That's essentially what we do to help companies. We've got a bunch of logos at the bottom, companies we currently help, and people that typically recommend what we do. So a couple of testimonials I want to run through where they won't read them out, but I'll just leave them on screen so you can have a quick read if you. So for people that are ready to take the next step, and want to take your IT and security to the next level, we do have a current offer running at the moment. We've just opened it up with 5 spots. 2 spots have already been taken, unfortunately. It's got our IT Kickstarter package, and it essentially allows us to help you look at your technology, improve your security with zero commitment for 30 days. If you want some more information, please scan the QR code, and there's no commitment. Scan that QR code, just register your interest. We'll have a conversation. We'll see if it's something that fits you and your business, and we'll take it ahead from there. It is purely a first come, first served basis, though. Those 5 spots are limited. That's not a marketing ploy. We can only offer it to 5 people. So I'll give you a moment if anyone's interested in scanning that QR code, and then I'll move on. So, if anyone has found this useful, I know we tend to do these fairly quickly. I don't like to bang on too much about all the bad news out in the world. It's more about how we can help people. If you have found it useful, I'd really appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review. So, word of mouth and testimonials are the most important thing for small businesses like us. To get the word out there so we can help more people, and build our following and do more good for people. So if you would be happy to leave us a quick 5-star review, that'd be amazing. I'm just going to leave that up for a couple more seconds. It's later to scan it and help us out. And lastly from me, I saw a quick question from Helen. Helen, do you want to just unmute and come on?
Yeah, hi Andy. That was great. Just touching on the password manager bit, because I know with us, I think most of us just save it all in our Google password manager. Are you talking about a separate app or something to keep passwords? Okay, right.
Absolutely. So typically Chrome, Edge is a little better at storing passwords, but ideally they're not the best because there's no real control about about how you secure those passwords. So, we offer a couple of solutions for password management, and the benefit is, if you've got shared accounts that you're, we in Initial IT we have lots and lots of shared accounts that the team use, but we can audit who's using those accounts. So although they're shared, I can still track down exactly who logged into that at that time. We can also share the QR code as well. So you haven't, sometimes when you try and share accounts, it's a nightmare texting people trying to get the code, all that sort of stuff.
Been there many times.
Yeah. So with Password Manager, you can share all that centrally. I'm more than happy to spend some more time with you, Helen, and show you that. So
Perfect. Thank you.
no problem. Roberta, I think you had a question. Feel free to unmute. Can't hear you. If you got issues with audio, you want to type it, that's absolutely fine, Roberta. Okay. Well, feel free to pitch it. I'm just going to sort of wrap up. So, as I mentioned before, feel free to scan the QR code. That's to my link tree. You can see the URL on the left-hand side. What do criminals look for? Large organisations, what are they most looking for? So, I think that it's a really good point so Roberta's question was, what do criminals look for? Larger organisations, what are they most looking for? There's two sorts, right? There's lots of different sorts, but let's keep it simple. There are really two types of cyber attacks out there. You've got targeted attacks. So, I want to breach Marks and Spencers. So, and that would typically entail, lots of social engineering, trying to find out more about employees that work for them, trying to gather as much information as you possibly can to then target and breach that company. It's a lot more expensive for the hacker to do. It takes a lot more time, but the payoff is generally worth it. So those sorts of attacks generally are targeted at bigger clients, bigger companies. The reality, though, is that most attacks are opportunistic. So what they're doing, it's a bit, imagine a burglar walking down the street. It's the same approach, right? He's looking at houses, he's looking at the security, he's looking at the big dog in that garden, he's looking at the security lights and for the neighbour, and then he sees the dark house in the corner that there's no one at home, there's no security. That's the one he's going to attack. It's the same with cybersecurity. People are actively scanning the internet, looking for weaknesses all the time. They're not thinking, I'm going to go and breach that small company, that little factory in the West Midlands that makes bits for Jaguar Land Rover. They just happen to come across it because they have weak security. Once they find a weakness, they're using a lot of AI tools these days to automatically try and breach that business. And once they're in, they really understand who that business is. So the answer to the question is they're not looking for anything. They're just scanning. Yeah. And they find an opportunity and then they're in. Does that answer the question? Felt like very long way to do it.
I've got one on the back of that, Andy. So are these just opportunistic people that want to test their skills to get into companies? For example, like JLR. I mean, they've been hit, lost lots, but I don't think any of them are paying the ransom. If they put the ransom up, no one's paying it, so they're not actually getting anything financially out of it. So is it just that their kudos has gone up because they've actually managed to get in? And
so a lot of people do pay the ransom, and there's a few different reasons. Political gain. There are some smaller groups of hackers that are doing it just to see if they can. But those sorts of people won't damage businesses. They're let me see if I can breach through this, firewall or see what I can do. But the majority of opportunistic hacks are done for profit. So they're looking to exfiltrate data or encrypt your data. So, or both usually, actually. Um, so what they're actually doing is they put a ransom up. Now JLR, a great example, have been told not to pay the ransom, and actually I think the British government are now saying they're going to make it effectively illegal to pay the ransom. So to dissuade people from doing it, but lots and lots of people are paying the ransom. There are a lot of people think that cyber criminals are, siloed people in their bedrooms at night trying to test their skills. But a lot of organizations are legitimate run businesses. They're legitimate in the terms of they have payroll and salaries, not in terms of their activities they do. But they're, you know, Scattered Spider's one of the big cyber criminal gangs at the moment. They're hackers on their payroll. They literally take a salary for hacking organizations. They're sat out in countries, Russia and China and all those countries that don't have very strong cyber laws. But yeah, they're doing this purely for profit. And lots and lots of people pay the ransom. I think that is why the problem is so rife, is because there's a lot of money to be made, both in terms of encrypting the data. So once you get into a business, with the example of KMP, the example I used earlier. So what they did was they deployed what they call a ransomware product, which encrypts all their data, so they can't open a document. And then once they've so then they can't work. Even the backup systems are encrypted. So they have a choice. The business halts or they pay the ransom. But they can also, before they encrypt that data, they can copy it off site. So then they can start. If you remember the nursery that got hacked recently, the hackers were starting to threaten to publish children's names out on the internet unless they paid their ransom. Now that was that was actually two kids in the UK that did that, but two 17-year-olds. But they're always looking for a way of profiting from this. So it might not be um, encryption of data, but exfiltration of data out of the business is massive at the moment. It's more popular actually than ransomware. Does that answer your question? Any more questions? I think we actually had a few people struggle with the link this morning, so I'm going to send this out as a video. So for anyone that isn't on the call, just feel free to WhatsApp me any questions you have. It's not a problem. I'll do my best to answer them all. Yeah. So Roberta just says, I guess what scares me the most is losing finances. Exactly right, um, and we always advise our clients. It's effectively a seesaw effect, cybersecurity. That's the way I term it. So you've got, on the one side, you've got risk reduction. So we work with businesses to reduce their risk of an attack. We don't want to get in the way of their daily operation. So we're trying to stay as transparent as possible, but reducing the risk of an attack for them. So one thing we did recently for a lot of our clients is we put a block in so that you couldn't log in outside the UK because of all the issues that are happening at the moment. We just felt that we needed to add a layer of protection for our clients. So it's like, well, if you want to go on holiday or you're working outside the UK, just WhatsApp us. We'll let you in. It's not a problem. It's dead easy to do. But actually, because all these attacks happen from outside the UK, let's just put another layer of protection in for our clients. So that's reducing the risk all the time. We're always working on. We've got a few other things in the pipeline that we're about to release that reduces that risk yet again. On the other side of the seesaw is protection. So if something ever happens, what do we do about it? So what do we actually? How do we recover? How do we get you back up and running? So that's where we look at data backup, we look at recovery times, we look at all those things to make sure, because we can never guarantee it won't happen. It could be an employee in your own business that does it, right? So we can never guarantee, unless we switch everything off and go home, can't guarantee that a business won't get hacked. But what we can do is absolutely cast iron and make sure that if it does, we can get you back up and running as soon as possible. With reducing the level of exposure, we can be on it as quickly as we possibly can in terms of stopping that breach happening. And that's how we look at cybersecurity these days. So my, again, QR code in the middle is for my link tree with all my socials. There's a few podcasts on there if you want to go listen to me talk even more. LinkedIn account is at the top. Feel free to send me a connection request. Love to connect on LinkedIn. I tend to put out a fair bit on cyber and various IT bits, so it's always useful. The orange text is our website. So again, go and check us out online, and there's just a link to my link tree account there if you don't trust QR codes. And that is it, everybody. So I don't have anything else on. Again, more than happy to stay online for a little while and take any more questions. But if not, I will give you a little bit of time back in your day, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, Andy.
You're very welcome. Right, I'll jump on Teams.